Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And we are very excited to showcase this next guest here on our network, so sit back, strap in, and get ready for a wonderful ride. And on the line with us today, we have Shawn T. Murphy. We're going to be discussing his wonderful book, Torn Between Two Worlds, Modern Medicine and Spiritual Healing. Available for purchase through Amazon as well as barnesandnoble.com. But people, listen, if you want to gather everything that Shawn has in store, well, do yourself a favor and head directly to his personal site. And that's tornbetweentwoworlds.com. There, not only will you find more information on Shawn himself, you'll find more information on this fantastic narrative, as well as find the 3 other titles that he's written to date. That's right, 4 titles that Shawn has written, all with the main title, Torn Between Two Worlds, but the subtitle varying between each. So we have Torn Between Two Worlds, Science and Religion. We have Wisdom and Rhetoric, Material and Ethereal. And then, of course, today's anchor, Modern Medicine and Spiritual Healing. All available for purchase, as I said, through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through his site, tornbetweentwoworlds.com. You know, I will say, Shawn was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by some of the best publishers in the business. Sweetspire Literature Management. So if you have a book that you'd like moved, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give and move it through Sweetspire. And you can find out more information on them and their fantastic company at sweetspireliterature.com. And people, listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Shawn here on the line with us. Now, the moment you go to his Amazon page, his Barnes & Noble page, his personal site, tornbetweentwoworlds.com, you start to do any research on this book that we're discussing today, you're instantly going to understand what we're going over. Now, in Shawn's own words, all 4 of his books that he's written to date are a culmination of a lifetime of learning. Now, I love that, right? Because we know, people, experience equates to wisdom. Well, the wonderful thing is it doesn't always have to be your particular experience that wisdom derives from. This book is exactly that. We're learning from his lifetime of knowledge and his lifetime of experience, the wisdom that he acquired and input into these books. And I promise you, you may not be able to relate to every single aspect, but you're going to be able to take a lot of this information, implement it into your day-to-day lives, and become better because of it. And listen, at the end of the day, Shawn is the expert. He's written the book. He's going to be able to articulate everything much better than I ever could. So without further ado, let's bring him here with us. Shawn, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you, man?
I'm very good, Benji. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Well, Shawn, listen, it's an absolute pleasure, okay? It really is a pleasure having you as a guest with us today. We're really looking forward to this. Not only the words of wisdom that we're going to be able to receive from you during this short interview, but also when we go and pick up your books, because I think what you're doing here is profound. And as I mentioned in my introduction, the education that we're going to be able to receive from you when we pick up your books are second to none. So we're really looking forward to that. Now, Shawn, I know we have a lot of information to cover, but before we go into your book, let's hold off slightly. Start by telling our listening audience a little bit more about yourself and your background, please.
As you said in your introduction, Benji, I see my life as a culmination of many, many years of learning. Mm-hmm. You know, when I was in high school, I started working in an auto body shop. And so I was working and learning really since I was 14. I worked my way through college as a machinist. You know, I worked as an aerospace engineer after graduating from college and got my master's in engineering, my MBA, and then my CFA. And for me, you know, a normal day was 8 hours of work and 8 hours of study. Right. And it's been that way for many, many, many years. After getting out of my college degrees, I started studying history of the Bible, history of religion. I learned German and started studying philosophy and other German philosophers besides Plato and the Greek philosophers. Mm-hmm. And then I really got into the ideas of spirituality. I was fortunate to meet a couple of spiritual healers who trained me in spiritual healing, both distance healing and on-hands healing.
Wow.
Then, for the last 25 years, I've been going to a spiritual retreat in the Swiss Alps, a 1-week retreat each year. And then I've done a lot of self-discovery, which is something that I recommend in my book because it's really the best learning I've ever made in my lifetime. And that is, any sort of outward bound. I've done the Mankind Project, which you might have heard of. I've done the Hoffman process. I've been many years of YPO forum retreats. And the most I've really learned in my life about myself was through the experiences of pushing myself. Been very grateful, and that's the kind of information that I bring forward in all of my books, is the learning that I've had over the last, I'm 62, so it's been a long time.
Absolutely. Shawn, there's so many different ways that I can go here, but I want to touch up on one of the final things that you said. You were talking about the concept of self-discovery and self-awareness. Listen, I can assume what you meant by that, but you know what happens when you assume, right, Shawn? I'm not going to do that to you. I have you here on the line. I can come right out and ask. Talk to our listening audience about that statement about self-discovery, what you meant by that, and really what's the importance in your mind of being self-aware?
Well, the inspiration for my last book was Dr. Edward Bach. Edward Bach is the inventor of the Bach flower remedies, if you know what those are. But in his little book called Heal Thyself, he wrote something very profound to me. He said, as a doctor, there's no way I can know my patients better than the patients know themselves.
Of course.
And so the best thing I can do as a doctor is to teach people to heal themselves, because they have all the knowledge. They know why they're sick. They know why they have stress. They know the relationships that they have, which are causing issues in their life. As a doctor, I can't know that, but self-discovery allows you to find, the deep underlying causes of the problems you have in your life, whether it's depression or if it's suicidal thoughts. Self-discovery can tell you more than a doctor can tell you. And that's what Bach wrote.
Shawn, thank you very much for entertaining me. I appreciate that. The anchor for today's interview is all about your book, Torn Between Two Worlds, Modern Medicine and Spiritual Healing. So without further ado, tell us a little bit more about your narrative.
Well, as I said, Edward Bach's book inspired my book. And so what I try to do is to help people, and as you said in your introduction, help people who are around other people who have mental illness, have some sort of a spiritual ailment. So in the first part of the book, I go through the long list of possible spiritual ailments that exist that we know about today. The second part of the book is a self-help book, and it gives numerous methods to help you heal yourself. If you go to a priest, he'll tell you to go home and pray. If you go to a New Age healer, they'll give you some sage, or they'll give you some crystals or something. As an engineer, as a holistic thinker, I don't leave anything out. Use everything that you can that can strengthen you in your life, and that's what's in the book. The thing that I found through the Hoffman process, if anybody's done that, is the importance of childhood and the importance of, the environment that you were in when you were being raised. And we can forego so many issues that both young people and older people have by giving children a healthy environment to grow up in. Mm-hmm. And healthy means really letting them be who they're supposed to be, not restricting them to what the parents think they should be. As a parent, we need to be a gardener. Plant the seed and give the seed some water and watch it grow. Don't turn a flower into a tree. Don't try to turn a tree into a shrub. That's a weakness that I have. I'm very, very passionate about children, but it's a weakness I had for the book. So I partnered with a PhD student from Harvard to help me teach that in a much more scientific way, right. And give the background needed, to help new parents to deal with children who are not like them. I certainly was not like my parents, and I suffered for that. Right. I don't want other children to suffer from, being different from what your parents expect you to be.
Shawn, one of the points that you hit on in your last answer, you were talking about spiritual ailments. Now, I want to touch up on that for a second and offer an opportunity for you to give some more clarity, because when we talk about spirituality especially, it's always been around, right? But that is a term that within the past decade or, more, spirituality has really come to the forefront in the minds of society, right? And people are now utilizing that term. They're much more familiar with it. Now, of course, we know that spirituality has a lot of different meanings based upon the person that is utilizing them. Now, I want to talk about, in your mind, what are you talking about when you're mentioning spiritual ailments? And then utilizing your books. I know your book is talking about spiritual healing. What are some of the techniques that someone could utilize to become spiritually healed?
Well, you're asking me to read my book to you, I guess. Because, as I said in the first part of the book, I do, go through the various causes of depression. Let's just speak about depression. Mm-hmm. My brother suffered from depression for much of his life. He went on antidepressants when he was probably 13 or 14. Wow. While he was on antidepressants, I think he tried to commit suicide 4 times. The last time when he had 2 young children. And the point is, when I look back at him, he's an artist. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't allowed to be an artist. His spirit is an artist spirit. And you know what that is.
Of course, yeah.
I suggest that his depression is because he wasn't allowed the opportunity to be fulfilled in life. And anybody who knows what fulfillment feels like and what, doing things that you love, that is the best way to overcome depression. Being in flow. If you've ever had that experience, that's just the way to get out of depression for most people. But if you can't be who you were meant to be, and there's a lot of discussion behind that, but that can lead to a spiritual depression. Mm-hmm. And no medication will fix that.
Shawn, that's a great point. That's a great point that you bring up, because listen, so much of it comes down to perception. That's the problem that we have and that we see nowadays with this opioid epidemic, right? Is it's like a Band-Aid. It doesn't necessarily alleviate the initial cause. It makes you numb to everything. And because of that, you're never actually fixing the problem, right? So I think that's a great, great point that you bring up. People, listen, we're here on the line again with Shawn T. Murphy. We're discussing his wonderful book, Torn Between Two Worlds, Modern Medicine and Spiritual Healing, available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but remember to check out his personal site, tornbetweentwoworlds.com, to gather everything that he has in store. Now, Shawn, next question, man, that I'd love to get into, and listen, I'm going to have to take a step back, okay? Because I keep pushing for it. I'm at the edge of my seat. I'm so engaged in everything that you're saying. And I have to remember to remind myself, Benji, this is not about you, okay? This is about Shawn. It's about capturing the essence, not giving the heart away of the book. So I'm going to back up. Next question that I'd love to go into. Shawn, what would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or maybe highlight is the wrong word. What was something that surprised you that you weren't expecting or anticipating before you began on the journey?
That's a loaded question. After I wrote the first 3 books, I went out to publicize them. And I found for the subject matter that the books addressed, I found the best place to publicize them on the platform Quora, if you're familiar with that platform. Mm-hmm. And I started answering people's questions. That's what Quora is about. It's asking questions and getting people to answer them. Answer people's questions on spiritual topics, on philosophic topics. I pretty much stay away from engineering because there's a lot of expertise there, so I don't need to add my expertise to it. But I started to get this following on Quora, which surprised me. And that's actually where the joy came from in writing the books. And there were 2 specific people who I met on Quora, Marianne and Will. And Will's story is in the book. They were the ones who really inspired me to write this book. I had not really understood the impact that I could have on essentially people who aren't understood by anybody else. I seem to have this ability, to listen to somebody who everybody else would say is crazy, and try and understand them. And I mean, Marianne is the example I'll give you. When Marianne was a child, the teacher in her class told the other kids, "Don't play with her, she's a witch."
Wow.
Now, can you imagine growing up with that stigma on you?
Right, yeah, of course. Just
because you have a spiritual gift? It wasn't until she met me at I think she's in her 40s, that she said, "You are the first person in my life who's accepted me for who I am."
Wow.
Can you imagine the impact of that?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, it's so depressing to hear that would have happened, but amazing that you had walked into her life and was really able to offer that comfort.
And that's the joy that I've gotten out of it. And that was actually the impetus for me to write this book. Absolutely. It was the strength of Marianne and the strength of Will, who kind of pushed me to do it.
Right. Shawn,
on the other side, let me
ahead.
finish, because the other side is where the surprise came. After I finished the book, I said, what am I going to do now? Because now I have all these people who are coming to me with questions and problems. I've got to find somebody to to help them. And then I realized nobody can help them better than I can. So what's come out of this book is I've started a spiritual consulting gig. I'll call it a gig. It's not a job. Where I offer specific recommendations out of my book for people with specific problems. And that's given me the greatest joy.
Now, for clarification, Shawn, the spiritual counseling that you're offering, is that available through the site? Are we able to gather more information through your personal site?
Yeah, that's on my website.
Wonderful. Listen, people, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Okay? You know where you have to go. You know what you have to do next. Shawn, as we start to tie up this fantastic interview, man, what's next for you? I mean, what's on the horizon? You have now essentially discovered you have a gift. Shawn, you pretty much have an obligation to continue to put things out now. I mean, you've embarked upon this journey. You got to fulfill it. We have 4 titles that you've written to date. Is there a 5th on the horizon? Talk to us about what's upcoming next.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said. Let me just tell something quickly. I can tell you every single movie at exactly what point I will cry in it. and you're laughing, but it's the point where somebody who has been unrecognized becomes recognized. Where somebody's been taken advantage of and undervalued to the point where they finally get recognized. And that just touches me so deeply. And it wasn't until I started interacting with these other people that I realized why it touched me so deeply. That is kind of my mission, is to help misunderstood people.
Fantastic.
So for now, that's what I'm doing. I'm working on a few collaborative pieces with some other core authors, and so we'll see what's next. But for now, I'm not looking to be on the New York bestseller list. I'm really interested in helping individuals. Right. I can't change the world, but I think I can help some people.
I'm being greedy. I just want more. What you're doing here is fantastic. Listen, people, he offers a spiritual healing, as he just said, through his website. Head on over there and sign up, right? Gather information on it. While you're at it, check out the 4 titles that he's created. I'm gonna repeat it for you once more. I know I don't have to, but let's re-impress it, okay? We're here on the line with Shawn T. Murphy. We just finished discussing his amazing book, Torn Between Two Worlds, Modern Medicine and Spiritual Healing. Now, while you're there, in addition to the spiritual counseling, in addition to the modern medicine and spiritual healing, look into the other 3 titles as well. Remember, all of the main titles are the same, Torn Between Two Worlds, and then the subtitles are varying for each. So we just discussed modern medicine and spiritual healing today. But you also want to look into Torn Between Two Worlds, Science and Religion, Wisdom and Rhetoric, and then Material and Ethereal. All of which, again, are available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or directly through his site, tornbetweentwoworlds.com. A wonderful book for you to embark upon, a wonderful education for you to learn, to add to your shelf, but an even better gift to add to somebody else's. So head on over there today, pick up your copies. I promise you will not be disappointed. Shawn, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. Truly an honor. I really do mean that. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you so much, Benji. I really enjoyed our discussion today.
Come and be a guest with us on People of Distinction.